All right, let's jump right into it. Today, we're tackling a real head-scratcher, a paradox that, on the surface, just shouldn't make any sense. We all know Taiwan's birth rate is one of the lowest in the world, right? So fewer students every year. And yet, somehow, its schools are facing a massive, crippling teacher shortage. So, here's the big question we're digging into. How is it even possible that with fewer and fewer kids in the classroom, schools are desperate for teachers? It's this bizarre contradiction that has parents totally worried, school administrators scrambling, and frankly, the whole education system on red alert. And this isn't some abstract problem, you know? This is what it looks like on the ground. I mean, can you imagine being a school principal and you're on your 23rd hiring round for the same job opening, and you're still coming up empty? This is a story that's playing out all across Taiwan, from the big cities to the small towns. The desperation is just palpable. Okay, so where do we even begin to untangle this mystery? Well, the very first step is to figure out who exactly is missing from all these classrooms. And here is. This is the first big clue that starts to unravel the whole thing. The crisis isn't a shortage of all teachers. No, it's a sudden, absolutely critical shortage of substitute teachers. For years, they were the flexible workforce that filled all the gaps. Now, that pool of talent has basically run dry. So the real question isn't, where did the teachers go? It's, where did all the substitutes go? The answer really starts with this one number. 5,000. That's about how many experienced, qualified substitute teachers just vanished from the system over the last couple of years. But here's the twist. They didn't quit teaching. So where on earth did they end up? It was pretty much a perfect storm of good intentions meeting terrible timing. So first, you had the government telling schools, hey, you're relying way too much on subs. You need to hire more permanent teachers. Okay, sensible enough. But then, at that exact same time, this huge wave of teachers who had put off retiring finally decided to leave the system. Poof! Thousands of permanent jobs suddenly opened up. And who do you think was perfectly qualified and first in line to take them? Right, the best, most experienced substitutes. So a good policy and a wave of retirements accidentally collided and created this completely new crisis, a bone-dry substitute pool. Okay, so you might be thinking, well, if the subs just became permanent teachers, why not just hire new substitutes? Problem solved. If only it were that simple. Because this isn't just about a one-time hiring frenzy. The system itself is caught in this deep structural conflict. It's basically at war with itself. And here's that conflict, right here. On one hand, you have the Ministry of Education saying to schools, your substitute teacher ratio is too high. You have to get it below 8%. So there's this huge pressure to hire more permanent staff. The problem is, they really, really don't want to. And this brilliantly illustrates the impossible position schools are in. In the short term, they have a temporary dragon year baby boom hitting them, so they need more teachers right now. But they're also staring down the barrel of the long-term trend, which is that the birth rate is falling off a cliff. So they're left with this absolutely terrifying choice. And you can really feel their pain when you hear an administrator put it like this. Hiring a permanent teacher isn't a one-year fix, it's a 30-year financial commitment. You just can't do that to solve a one-year spike in student numbers. The only thing that makes sense is to hire temporary substitutes. But, as we already know, there are no substitutes left to hire. And you know, this isn't just a headache for accountants and policymakers. This has a very real, very human cost. This whole crisis is hitting the quality of education that kids receive, and it's creating a super stressful environment for students, parents, and teachers alike. So how do schools even try to cope? Well, this is the desperate process. Round 1. They post a job looking for a fully certified teacher. No one applies, so for round 2, they lower the bar. Okay, how about someone who's just finished the coursework? Still nothing. By the time they get to the 3rd, 4th, or even 10th round, they just throw the doors open. Literally anyone with a university degree can apply. You can see why parents are getting a little worried. And the results in the classroom are exactly what you'd fear. You get an English teacher suddenly being told they have to teach social studies, or a science class being taught by a warm body who has absolutely no background in science. Now, that person might be wonderful, but they just might not be qualified for that specific subject. This also puts the few substitutes who do take these jobs in an impossible position. They walk into a classroom and they're immediately facing a lack of trust from parents who might feel like, oh, you're not an official teacher, so you're not as good. It's an incredibly difficult and unsupportive environment to work in. And honestly, why would anyone choose to be a substitute long term? I mean, look at this. The difference is just night and day. A permanent teacher is a secure civil servant. They have a government pension waiting for them. A substitute? You're on a one-year contract governed by basic labor law. No pension plan, fewer bonuses, and it's only very recently that their years of experience have started to count toward their pay. It's a two-tiered system that makes being a career sub basically impossible. So, with a system this tangled up and broken, is there even a way out? Let's take a look at some of the solutions that are being floated to try and pull Taiwan's education system out of this nosedive. But this chart, this reveals a much bigger, more worrying problem that goes way beyond just the substitute issue. You have talented people, especially in high-demand fields like tech, and they're looking at the low pay, the total lack of job security, the tough working conditions in teaching, and they're just saying no thanks and choosing other careers. The entire pipeline of talent for education is getting thinner and thinner. So what can actually be done? The proposed fixes are all over the map. You have practical ideas like making sure substitute seniority actually counts for pay raises and offering real incentives to teach in rural areas. Then there are structural fixes, like creating more flexible ways for people to get certified while they teach. But a lot of people argue the most important fix is cultural. A real society-wide effort to improve the respect and social standing of the teaching profession itself. But you have to wonder if even these fixes are enough, because here is the single most alarming warning sign of all. This is not just a substitute teacher problem anymore. In Taipei, one of the most desirable places to live and work in all of Taiwan, schools recently failed to fill 40% of their permanent, full-time elementary teacher jobs. The crisis is spreading, and that leaves us with one last, really unsettling question. The substitute shortage was like the canary in the coal mine, the first alarm bell. But now that even permanent, stable jobs are sitting empty, you have to ask, are we just looking at one problem that needs to be fixed, or are we watching the first major crack appear in the very foundation of Taiwan's entire education system? And that is a question the island needs to answer, and fast.